You are listening to another special episode of the Case Closed podcast. I'm your host, Professor C, and as usual, we have a lot to discuss. I do want to talk about quite a few things in this episode. One of the big subjects being our Save Case Closed panel, our very first panel that we did over in Pittsburgh on April 18th, just a little over a week ago. I want to come to everybody and say how successful we were in what we were trying to do. We had a great audience for our panel, and everybody seemed really enthusiastic about some of the things that we were talking about regarding Case Closed. So we'll dive into that a little bit here in a minute. Another thing we'll be talking about is the Lupin the Third Conan crossover movie, which was just announced to be released DVD and maybe even a Blu-ray copy by Discotheque Media, which is the same company that's been doing a lot of subtitling for the Lupin the Third series and releasing that over here in the States. And they've been very successful. So their first real try at doing anything Conan related. I hope we can support it and buy it up, and hopefully it does really well over here. Because we would like to see them, if Funimation can't pick up the series at some point, we would like to see them pick it up and maybe run with it. Something I wanted to discuss was on that particular release, I was doing some research into their new Lupin the Third movie that they have coming out. They have one coming out next month, I believe, and I think it's called The Castle of Caraglo or something like that. There was a lot of rumors that they would have their own in-house dub of it, and I don't believe that's the case. Some of the things that I had read stated that some older dubs of the movie that were done back in the 90s and the early 2000s would actually be present on that DVD. It would not be their own in-house talent recording that particular movie. So it might be pointing towards a subtitled edition of Lupin the Third versus Detective Conan coming out in the States. But we just don't know. I do understand that they actually have started dubbing some properties in-house recently. I just haven't been able to find out which projects those were exactly. If anybody can track that down, though, and wants to let me know, I would definitely be interested to know what they have dubbed and or what they are working on dubbing. Because if they are, then they very might well be trying to dub that movie for the States, which would be just huge to have any kind of new Case Closed content come out here in the United States. So, and if it did, I think a lot of us would go crazy and we would buy it up in bulk for sure. So hopefully they do a dub. If they don't, we're still going to support them all the same, because a new release for Case Closed here in the States is a new release, and it's something that we should all get behind and be excited about. Now I want to talk about the panel a little bit and kind of go into what went into it. Travis, I will take no credit for setting it up. Travis did all the work as far as setting it up, talking to the right people, making sure that we had everything that we needed to run a successful panel. He did a fantastic job, and I just want to acknowledge what a fantastic job he did for us as far as stepping up to the plate and really coming through for us. It was nice to go to Teco and just kind of experience the whole weekend even before the panel even happened. We got to go and just kind of walk around, and I spent a day or two there and went to other panels and sat in on quite a few of Jerry Jewell's panels, and he had two panels that I went to. There was a 101 voice actors workshop, and then there was just one called Ask Jerry Anything. So the more we went into it, the first one I went to was the Ask Jerry Anything, and I sat close to the front row just to kind of get kind of a good feel for where he was. And there were a lot of questions, and one of the questions was, from a fan that said, "Aren't you glad that they cut off, a show like Case Closed, which is now well into over 700 episodes over in Japan, and aren't you relieved that you're not working on that anymore? And he said, well, and his response was as follows. He said, I really enjoyed working on that, and I am actually really sad that that show is no longer going in the U.S. anymore. So, coming from Jerry Jewell's own mouth, he is disappointed that the show did not continue here in the States. He would like to keep working on the project, and I found that to be quite touching. And then the next question I had asked, I didn't start with a question. I started by telling him and the other people in the room who I was, as being the person that was behind Safe Case Closed, the person who started the movement, and informed him about our panel, which he wasn't actually able to attend because they rescheduled our panel to a time where he had a panel going as well. And he was very enthusiastic about it. He said that he had heard about us and that he was really, really happy with the work that we were doing, and that, just keep preaching about buying the season sets. And because I think he probably did listen to a little bit of it, because that was something that he had talked about. And I said, well, that's mostly, for the most part, all that we talk about for the most part is people buying the series and supporting it. And so it was something that we felt, I think, the same. We had the same feeling about it. So the further we went into it, the only question I had asked him in that panel was, what was your favorite movie to work on? And he said his favorite movie to work on was the Time Bomb Skyscraper. He just said he had a lot of fun recording with everybody. It was their first movie they did for the series, and that on the set they just had a really good time. So that was his favorite movie to record, which I found interesting. It's not my favorite to watch. I don't think it's a lot of people's favorite to watch, but from a voice actor's perspective, if that being his favorite, I think that's cool. Then I went to another workshop of his where he was talking about voice acting, and he was very, very blunt to the people in the room about voice acting, about what it takes to really be a professional, how you need to carry yourself, and the fact that it's just not for everybody. I stayed in that panel for a while, but I did want to dip out early because me and Travis were actually going to stand in line for autographs. We were getting some the season sets that he brought with him autographed, and we had actually he had brought a imported Detective Conan figure, which was a figure of Jimmy, to have signed. And so we got those DVDs and that particular a figure in the box signed, and then we headed over to our panel. And without going into too much detail about everything that went on in the panel, because I think in the next episode we might actually have Travis on here for an interview, but we went in, we had our autograph material, we set everything up, and it was funny, sitting there, because we started off, we had 30 minutes to set up, and as me and him were talking about this later, it just seemed like that time just flew by. We started off with like 5 people in the room, with about 10 minutes to go till the panel, and then all of a sudden there was just this flood of people. I mean, people just kept, filing in, and luckily I had another friend there to hand out raffle tickets and stuff, because we were handing out raffle tickets to everybody that came in so that we could do a drawing at the end. And luckily I did, because we just had people, as we were starting, just lots and lots of people filing in. I mean, me and Travis were sitting on stage looking at each other at the front, and we were just like, wow, this is something. So 51 people in total were there. We handed out raffle tickets to everybody, and we started off the panel in a lot of ways going over who we were, and nobody there really knew who we were. I think maybe 2 or 3 people at the panel had even heard of us before, but we also handed out our business cards that Travis was gracious enough to make up. We handed those out to everybody, and we started off by talking about who we were, why the series left the United States, what it was like when it was here, just some background over the show, and then over the stuff that we were working on. And after that, we really opened it up to more of a discussion, more than anything, because as an audience that doesn't know who we are or doesn't understand what we're doing just yet as far as our podcasts and stuff, nobody wants to sit there and hear all these things at one time being thrown at them when you have no background of it. I think people in our community that are on our Facebook page and have been with us since day one, that's something they would want to know about, how we got the project started and where we were going with it. But, I didn't want to bash the audience too hard with that because I knew they would lose interest. So after about 20 or 30 minutes, we opened it up to just a discussion, and a lot of people had some strong opinions about the show and why they felt like it failed, or why would a company ditch a show, or just a lot of things. I don't want to get too into it now because obviously I would like to have Travis on the podcast to talk more about it, but I was very surprised with how many people had an opinion. And then the moment of truth for me was when I had asked the audience, I said, how many people in this audience have bought a season set? And literally, out of the 51 people, it wasn't even a quarter of the room that raised their hands. So it tells me we have the fan base, and this is something we talked about so early on. The fan base is here in the United States. They're not buying it, though. They're watching it for free, and that's where we have to change it. People have to buy the show for it to be successful. And I found that to be really sad, and I found it to be, gosh, this is why we do this, to get people to actually purchase the show and support the show. And it just reaffirmed for me why I started this in the first place. Because I've always believed, in my heart, I've always believed that the audience is there. I think a lot of people love the show here in the United States. I just don't think that everyone has purchased it or bought it or even bought an episode or a season. And I went into detail about, it's easier to buy the series now than it ever was, because now you have the digital downloads, you have the save editions, which are cheap, very, very cheap. And, when we were there, we were, really able to see what Funimation was there offering, because it was their first year going to Techo as well. And I think they were really sampling what that event was all about. And it was a great audience. I mean, there's a lot of people walking around. I would assume probably over 6,000 made it out this year to it. It was pretty packed, and that was what they projected. But we'd go to the vendor's room or the exhibition hall, wherever they were selling products, and they had case closed at the Funimation booth. They were selling it along with tons of other DVDs. But it was there, and they didn't bring a lot of merchandise to sell. I noticed they brought one or two copies, or actually more like 2 or 3 copies of every show in their, that they were featuring and selling at their booth. And Case Closed was one of the ones they were actively selling. Season 2 got sold out pretty quick. I was watching it. I bought a copy of Season 3 because I was dumb enough to forget my season sets that I was going to enter into the drawing. Luckily, Travis kept up his end of the bargain and actually brought quite a bit. But I, like a goof, forgot. I was in such a hurry to leave from Texas to get up to Pittsburgh that I just completely left without it. So I went and bought a copy of Season 3 to have autographed, and then we got that handed out. But for the most part, the seasons that they were selling either went down to 1 copy or they sold out. And I think Season 3 I ended up selling out before we left. And there were a couple of people I talked to after the panel that went out and bought season sets from that room. Because Funimation wasn't the only DVD vendor there. There was a couple of others that were selling the movies and the seasons. And I did see a couple of people and talked to them. They said, well, we realized what you were trying to say, and we went out and bought them since we were here. So a lot of people were appreciative what we had to say in regards to, buying the series and supporting the show. It's so important. If you're listening to this podcast and you want to see it come back, it's what we said from the beginning: buy the show and experience it, and be a part of the group that supports it the right way, not the people that download it onto their computer and the people that are griping and moaning for a season 6 when they haven't done anything to help us get there. Buying the show and supporting the show in the United States is the only way you're going to get a season 6. Even little things, getting a subscription to Crunchyroll and watching the subs online, and giving it a good rating and actively supporting it that way too. That's very important as well. Just because that particular license was for the sub on Crunchyroll is meant to cover the U.S. and Canada, so it's meant to appeal to us as an audience. Just things like that. And then, of course, with the Lupin the Third Conan movie crossover coming, and the TV special, for that matter, are also going to be released with that. I found that out this week, too. That the TV special, the 30-minute TV special, is also going to come out with the movie. When that comes out, whether it's a dub or a sub, we need to actively, as a fan base, support it and buy it. And really, really think about, do we want to see this show again? And if we do, we're going to really actively support that release, and we're going to write to Discotech after we've bought it and say, hey, this is a really great product, and we would really like to see you. If Funimation doesn't carry on the show, we would love to see you carry on the show. So it's going to be really, 2015 is going to be about supporting the series and really focusing on what we talked about from the beginning: buying the season sets and supporting the show by, us putting our hands in our wallets and pulling out our credit cards and our cash and just putting up the money if we haven't done it already. Guys like me have bought the show 2 or 3 times. We're not going to buy it again, but people like me are sitting there shaking their heads at people who haven't bought it once, but they want to go on our Facebook page and say, well, why don't we have a season 6? And I'm like, well, have you seen the show? And they're like, yes, I watched it on YouTube. Oh, well, that doesn't help anything. I don't want to talk to those people. I want to talk to people who bought it. If you didn't buy it and you don't have any desire to officially support it, then I don't want you around my page or anything like that. So this is going to be a big year for us. Obviously, we're still trying to finish the Fandub. We are we're closer than ever. It's hard for people to believe that with as long as we've said that, but we are closer than ever to getting the first 2 episodes out. And we're very excited about that. Again, guys, it's a huge thing to get that out and to be able to support the show that way, because we can load it with Funimation ads for Case Closed and really even preach buying the season sets further. But the Fandub, again, is our dub. It's not an official dub. It's Jerry Jewell will always be the voice of Jimmy Kudo to me. Nobody can replace that, and the same goes for the other characters. We're just here doing what we can to promote the show, and I think the Fandub is going to be an awesome way for us to promote the show in our own way and to give ourselves an idea of what season 6 might have looked like had we actually gotten it. And it's just such a big year for us. I really would love y'all to support the show, buy it, talk to us on Facebook, tell all your friends about it. This podcast, again, is something that I work very hard on. I would love it if you shared our podcast with everybody that you know. We're looking for new partners also in 2015. We still have, our partners that we made a long time ago, dating back to All Kids Out of the Pool. Now it's known as Public Pool, which is, airing on the weekends now. We'll have a link to that in the description as well. But it's, this is a huge, huge time for us, and I think it's time we all step up to the plate and do what we're supposed to do as fans. So share our podcast with everybody you know. Tell everyone you know about Case Closed. If you have season sets, invite people over to your house and watch it. We still have those Case closed watch parties, every Saturday, just have a case closed watch party, because that's what it's designed for. That's something we talked about, Saturday nights, just make it a case closed watch party, show your friends a season or two, sit on the couch with some popcorn, and it's like I said at the panel, case closed makes for great television, and I think everybody needs the chance to experience that. So I'm going to leave you with that, guys, and on the next episode, we will try to get Travis in here to do an interview, so that we can talk about our experiences together at the panel and at TechO 2015. So until next time, thanks for listening to the Case Closed podcast. Take care, everybody.